Palantir stock, it is over. 16 incoming. Who wants to take the elevator down to the 16th floor? Houston, we have a problem. Palantir has no floor. Yikes. Palantir executive team, a bunch of piggies. Oh boy. I'm out. Now everybody can buy. Oh man, you gotta love this. How would you rate the quality of this conversation on message boards? Oh boy. AMD showed off their AI products here today. Stock went down. People are saying the AI hype and excitement is donezo. Nvidia stock keeps going down another 2+%. C3 AI reported earnings after the bell. The stock is down over 9 percentage points after hours right now. It should be a huge downward move for C3 AI tomorrow, which gets grouped into Palantir many times. Palantir stock is down 14 percentage points just in the past 5 trading days, down another 6% plus here today. The hatred for Palantir. Everybody's out with their pitchforks, saying Palantir's donezo. So we're going to speak about this subject in today's video. We're going to talk about, is Palantir about to face a much bigger downward move here, and does it make sense to get out of the stock over the next few months and buy it back and let's call it the first quarter, second quarter of next year, something like that at a much cheaper price. So we'll discuss all that in today's video, okay? But yeah, there's obviously a lot of people. By the way, I appreciate every single person for joining me here today. Thanks so much for being here. Thank you for smashing that like button, all that good stuff. Let me address an elephant in the room, okay? We got to talk about an elephant in the room before we get into the fundamentals, before we get into C3 AI and the valuation of Palantir and growth rates and some of this new analyst stuff that's coming out here in the last 24 to 48 hours and all that stuff. Okay, before we get into all that, let me address the elephant in the room. Why is it that Palantir gets so much hatred all over the place? Like, you go to forums, you go to message boards, you go to social media and things like that. When Palantir stock starts doing bad, why does it face so much criticism, so much hatred? So many people seem like they're rooting against the stock, like really rooting against it to go down. Like, they're so happy to see it go down. Well, there's 5 core reasons why this happens, okay? And as somebody that has been in the market 15 years, always been online, right? Online brokerage accounts, and just, used Yahoo Finance religiously back in the day and was check the message boards and conversations. Like, I've seen how all this plays out, okay? There's 5 core reasons before we get into the rest of the stuff, okay? One is jealousy. A stock like Palantir, very popular in the market, right? A lot of retail investors have prospered from this stock over the past, couple years now at this point in time, right? There's a lot of jealousy in regards to Palantir. And most stocks in the market, if they do well, they don't get much jealousy. But if it's a stock that a lot of people have seen, a lot of people make a lot of money in, there's a certain segment of the population that gets very jealous, very jaded, and they actually want to see that stock do bad. Now, I don't understand that way of thinking. If somebody makes money in a stock, great for them. Awesome. Like, I root for them. Like, I don't care if I'm not investing in a stock. Like, good for you. Make money. Like, do you, man. Like, awesome. Like, I like to see people making money in the world. Other people don't like to see that. It makes other people feel inferior. It makes other people feel bad about themselves. It's the way it's been. It's the way it will always be. It's always been this way, folks. It always will be this way. There's always going to be a certain segment of the population that when other people are prospering and doing well, they can't wait for their downfall. And so that's a component. The other one is a burn short. This is, if you've shorted Palantir in the last year and a half, you've been burned on the stock, right? So some of those folks have run down their portfolios significantly. And so, even if they're not actively shorting the stock, buying puts on the stock, they're still rooting for it to go down because they got burned by Palantir's obviously massive run over this past year and a half or so, right? The third thing is new shorts that need the stock down, right? You're always going to have a certain amount of people. Like, people have been consistently trying to bet against this AI wave this entire year, and they've just gotten burnt, but they keep trying to bet against it, right? And so people bet against the stocks like the Palantirs or the Nvidias or whoever else is seen as like the AI type stocks. And so you have those sorts of groups that they really need these stocks down. So they're jumping on the bandwagon there, and to let everybody know these stocks are going down. They're taking the elevator down 16, 15. It's going back to 10. It's going back to 6. All those sorts of things, right? Then you have longs that sold last year. Let's be honest. If you bought Palantir in 2021, you got wrecked last year, right? Your timing was completely off on Palantir. If you were buying Palantir last year like I was, right, in 2022, you made out like a bandit. Like, holy smokers, that's no jokers. But if you bought Palantir, let's say, at the end of 2020, 2021, a lot of people sold out of that stock last year, which is why the stock went from $30, $40 stock down to $5 to $6. Like, how did it make that big of a move? People sold and sold and sold. And then you got a bunch of jaded former longs that were long in Palantir, sold out last year as a stock dumped, right? Lost a bunch of money on it, and they really want to see Palantir fail because they lost a bunch of money in it. That kind of goes a little bit back to the jealousy thing, but it's just from a different angle than anything else. And the fifth one is, you have a lot of people that don't own nearly as many Palantir shares as they want to own, and they're actually rooting for Palantir to go down. They want Palantir to go down so they can buy more shares. And so they almost sometimes will add fuel to the fire as far as kind of the hate storm around it to kind of trick everybody, to get everybody to, get going crazy and like, oh, I got to dump out of this stock. And, man. And then they come right in behind them and pick up those shares. Remember, every share that's sold in the market has a buyer on the other side. Every share that's sold, right? Somebody sold me personally shares of Meta stock last year at $88.94. I have the screenshots. I own those shares today. $88.94. This is what happens in the market. There's always somebody buying on the other side, right? So just a little food for thought in regards to that, okay? Alrighty, so first off here, let's start with the C3 AI stuff, okay? Which is a new fear unlocked in regards to Palantir and going to crash Palantir stock, right? Because C3 AI came out after the bell and basically reported revenue that actually missed analyst expectations. And when you're a company like a C3 AI, you really can't report revenues that are missing. Not in this market right now. And so the fact that they missed on revenue was definitely not a good sign, and that's a huge component of why the stock is down big, right? As far as their Q3 total outlook, they're expecting $74 to $78 million in revenue. 2024 outlook in general, 295 to 320, consensus at 307, 308, somewhere around there, right? Company is losing money on a non-GAAP basis, so it is a money-losing company overall, which is very different than a Palantir, which Palantir is a money-making company. So just a little food for thought in regards to that, right? Now, in regards to C3 AI, right, it gets grouped in with Palantir, but it honestly probably shouldn't be. And, I've tried to see like reviews over time from some of these folks in regards to maybe people that have worked at Palantir or have viewpoints on this and things like that, right, in terms of C3 AI specific. And it's interesting, like I see this review, this is back from actually the end of 2021. This person says, feels like a scam to sell a product that's worse than free products out there. On the flip side, you have this guy from, Halloween Day. He's supposedly a senior director of solutions and business development that says it's an awesome company to work for. He gives it 5 stars. Then you got this person from last month, November, gave it a 2-star, and supposedly they say the technology is great, but it's miserable company culture. So, and everybody's always stressed at the company and things like that. So you don't know what to believe, but the C3 AI does have a funny background, right? Right here, this says 2009, founded as C3 Energy. Then in 2016, they rebranded to C3 IoT, Internet of Things, because that was a hot thing at that moment, back in the Fitbit, GoPro days, and Apple Watch, and all of that stuff, right? IoT, Internet of Things. Then in 2019, they rebranded to C3 AI, right? And so it is kind of seen as some red flags for the company overall when you kind of like, you're switching like, okay, we're not this thing, we're now this thing, we're now this thing. And so to put C3 AI into the same category as Palantir is probably, I would say, disrespectful is the best way I could put it. Disrespectful to Palantir and what that company's built over the years and the technology they actually have and the stuff they've been working on for, a decade plus now at this point in time. The government relationships they have. And so, yeah, that's where I'll leave it in regards to C3 AI. I do not think it's a very fair comp. I understand because C3 has AI in their term, they're going to get grouped in with Palantir, but I just don't think when you look at the history of that company, what they have going on, I don't necessarily think it's very, I think it's, like I said, I think the best way I could describe it is pretty disrespectful to put Palantir into their same category, but they're put in that category, right? And so, would I be surprised if Palantir stock is down tomorrow on the back of the C3 AI earnings? I wouldn't be surprised. Like, it is what it is. I wouldn't be surprised because that's the way, they do it sometimes on Wall Street, right? Now, next up here, listen, Palantir stock has had several big pullbacks this year. If we just look at this year, which has been a tremendous year, remember, Palantir stock is up 167% year to date. Now, despite that, this year, the stock's had many big pullbacks. Many crashes, right? Right here, this was an interesting time, right? So Palantir starts the year on fire, and then starting around February starts to really weaken, and actually stays weak over pretty much almost the entire springtime, and goes right back to the 7s. So you could have easily said, oh, Palantir's back in the 7s, it's going back to the 6s, where it belongs, back in the 6s. You could have easily said that at that point in time, right? Then Palantir goes on another beast run, right? And then it pulls back over the next several months, and it drops, let's call it 20%-ish from kind of this peak to this trough here. And that was another moment you said, okay, that's all the excitement out of Palantir now at this point in time. This overhyped stock is done. It's done. It's going back down all the way to Chinatown, right? And then Palantir goes on another run, and you could have said, okay, after it went down again, okay, that was the last run for this stock. And then it goes on another big run, reaches $21 a share or so, right? And then we've had this most recent pullback, which you could say the same exact thing you've said for all these other pullbacks here is, that's it. It's donezo. It's going down, to this price, that price, they've faded. This is it. And so just keep in mind, this is just one of actually 4 major falls for the stock this year. And even with those 4 major falls, it's still stock up 167 percentage points this year, okay? That's a little food for thought. I think that's very important, okay? Next up here, Palantir is actually down on a 3-year basis. The stock is down on a 3-year basis. Now, when you think about Palantir's business model 3 years ago versus today, okay, what do we know about Palantir 3 years ago versus today? Their revenues were much lower than what they are today. They were losing fortunes of money 3 years ago versus now they're starting to make really nice profits, and those profits are expanding rapidly right now, okay? So 3 years ago, much lower revenues, a disaster bottom line, and share-based compensation to the moon 3 years ago, which is no longer the situation now at this point in time. If anything, actually the company's looking to take shares off the market with their buyback. So those are 3 of the most important things you could ever look for in the company. And you want to know the 4th one? Well, 3 years ago, all the corporations out there were not looking for AI solutions. Today, every single major company out there is looking for AI solutions. And one of the few true AI players in the SaaS space, software space, whatever you want to call it, is guess what? Palantir. And so I think these are extremely, extremely important things to consider when you're looking at the stock and you're saying this is a stock that's down quite significantly versus where the stock actually was 3 flipping flapjacking years ago, okay? That's extraordinary. Next up here, and this is out of Barron's here. Palantir stock just keeps dropping. It just failed a key test. Palantir stock was headed for more losses on Wednesday after breaching a closely watched technical price level that could accelerate declines, right? This is something some folks look at, especially in the trader community, about these technicals, and they make trading decisions based upon what is actually going on here. And if Palantir is at this certain technical level, they sell the stock. If it's at a certain technical level, they buy the stock. And they make these sorts of decisions. My opinion of this is, it's a little foolish, but you got to understand, like, certain people do this. And so if Palantir fails a key level, you're going to have a certain amount of people that won't buy it or they're going to sell the stock in the short term. But the thing you got to remember about all these technical things, they're short-term things. And everybody talks about them for a few days, maybe a week, and then it goes on. And then it's on to the next thing. And these things never drive a stock over the long term. They can drive a stock over a few days, but they never drive a stock over the long term. That is a little food for thought there, right? Then you have this out here. Just negativity on negativity everywhere in regards to Palantir, right? Palantir stock falls on analyst caution. Shares of Palantir fell sharply after analysts at William Blair raised concerns about the potential Army renewing a contract with the tech company, right? An industry event at Fort Belvoir, Virginia, U.S. Army officials set out plans to revamp the Army data platform, what used to be known as the Vantage dashboard. Taking notes, William Blair analyst Louis De Palma says the comment suggests brewing friction with Palantir, supposedly, okay? And so supposedly, once again, none of this is confirmed, this is just, supposed things, is Palantir could make less from this next Army contract, this particular Army contract here, right? That's what the talk is. And there's brewing friction, he says, which, once again, this is just one man saying brewing friction, who's already a bearish analyst on the stock with an underperform rating. So this is a little food for thought here. When you hear from somebody, I could go out there and say, I went to the thing and, I thought it was a brewing great relationship, and it's just like, well, who's really to be trusted here? Who can you believe? And so I wanted to look up this Louis De Palma and see, is he a good analyst? Is he ranked high? Is he a bad analyst? And here's what I found in regards to this Louis De Palma when I had this note, okay? So based upon Tips rank, they have him as about a 3-star analyst, roughly. They say he's a 3,068 best analyst out of 8,600, right? So based upon his success rate and his average return, it looks like he's kind of an average guy in terms of the analyst community. He's certainly not the worst. He's certainly not the best. He's kind of seems like an average analyst out there. So, when an analyst comes out here and says this, says that, I mean, take it for what it is. Take it with a grain of salt. Keep in mind that's one contract, and if you read more of the details, it sounds like they could miss out potentially $50 to $60 million. Well, Palantir's going to do several $1 billion of revenue. So it's like, even if that contract isn't quite there, they have so much growth in so many other places in the government sector and in the commercial sector that can obviously make up for that, okay? So that's a little food for thought in regards to that negativity there, right? Then you have this out here, which is another kind of negative storm out there. Palantir CEO Alex Karp trashes corporate America for silence on Israel after what happened on October, right? Software AI, our defense in the modern world, says Dr. Alex Karp. And so this is, you can agree with him, you can disagree with him, but there's certain folks that might find his words offensive. Like, if he's going to trash corporate America, people are going to say, why are you trashing us? This is ridiculous, okay? I don't know. It's one of those things, right? And some people feel certain ways about that. And, they don't want certain things to be said. I don't know. It is what it is, right? But it is a factor that has to be considered out there, right? Then you have this negative article that was put out here. This was actually put out last month that I think is important out of Reuters. Palantir's mythology is far too precious. And in that title kind of leaves you like, where are we going here? Palantir Technologies has cultivated a powerful mythos worthy of being named for a crystal ball from The Lord of the Rings, the data analytics company co-founded by Peter Thiel and run by Alex Karp. They always got to throw Peter Thiel in there, man. Even if the man's got nothing to do with the company nowadays, they always got to throw Peter Thiel in there. And run by Alex Karp fetches a big premium to most of its peers. Financial realities, however, suggest that valuation is the stuff of science fiction. Ooh, okay. Demand is quickly rising for software using artificial intelligence that can make sense out of voluminous and disparate data to flag suspicious financial transactions or defend against military things. We'll just call it that, okay? Yet Palantir's top line is only expected to grow 16% this year, according to forecasts. Databricks, which similarly helps customers unpick facts and figures, said in a recent private funding round that is expanding 3 times quicker than Palantir, right? Well, Databricks at a very different stage in their growth cycle than a Palantir. Very different stage in their life cycle than a Palantir, and different products than a Palantir. And just because they have this sort of growth rate now doesn't mean they're going to always have that growth rate in the future, right? We saw Snowflake. Snowflake used to grow, 3x, 4x, 5x. Palantir, right? And now it's gotten to a point where Snowflake looks like it might be growing maybe 2x Palantir's growth rate next year. So that's obviously come down immensely. So, it's not always who's the quickest to the first 10 meters. It's who gets the finish line the best, right? With an enterprise value of some $40 billion after a tripling of its stock price this year, Palantir trades at 14 times revenue analyst expectations over the next 12 months. Rival Snowflake, once again, Snowflake has a bit of a different business model than Palantir, but okay. Rival Snowflake, whose sales are expected to increase 50% faster, is valued at the same multiple. Microsoft garners a 30% discount despite its AI prowess, in that it is expected to grow only slightly slower than Palantir. Moreover, both Snowflake and Microsoft have better at turning revenue into free cash flow, right? Well, those companies, once again, Snowflake's a different company than Palantir. Microsoft's a very different company than Palantir. Their products are very, very different in the markets, okay? The company's odd choices about capital allocation also warrant a discount. For example, Palantir bought $50 million worth of gold bars in 2021. Okay, so, I don't even know if this is worth bringing up. $50 million? Like, Palantir has billions of dollars of cash. Like, $50 million is like them buying a can of soda. Like, we could have brought that up. Like, what? Like, why is that even worth bringing up, right? Also sitting on Palantir's balance sheet are stakes in targets of special acquisition companies as SPACs, right? I mean, we're bringing back up the 2020, 2021 stuff again. I mean, when you're talking about gold bars and talking about the SPACs, like that stuff, we're literally about to go into 2024. Like, we're still talking about 2020, 2021 stuff. Like, that's years ago now at this point in time. We're about to start 2024. Like, we can keep rehashing these negative things again and again and again, but it holds less and less weight as the years tick on. Like, did Palantir make some questionable decisions like every other human and company did in 2021? Yes. There wasn't a human or company who didn't make questionable decisions in 2021. Everybody freaking did, okay? At the end of 2020, beginning of 2021, everybody did. Every company did some clownish stuff. Every company either overhired or started some new businesses that were very questionable. I don't know one company that didn't. Not one. Or an individual that didn't, right? So, okay, let's make fun of them for that, along with every other company and person in the world that made some questionable decisions. But okay, so, to keep bringing up this sort of stuff, it doesn't hold weight anymore, man. We're about to go into 2024. Next up here, everybody, that individual talks about Palantir's valuation, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I like to look at it like this, right? So, when has Palantir this year just gotten to profitability? Usually, as the next few years tick on, you should see massive increases in a company's profitability. Now, Palantir can continue to pull in, at least for 2024, a lot of money just from holding money in treasuries. And the reason being is treasuries are still going to be yielding great returns in 2024 because whenever the Fed does lower rates, whenever it is, I think the earliest is probably late 2024, but there's potentially they don't lower rates at all in 2024, right? So Treasury is going to yield great the whole year, so they're going to make a bunch of money from that. They're also buying back shares, right? They got big share buyback announced now at this point in time, and they also just reached the infant stage of operating income. So they should be able to expand that rapidly in 2024 and in future years. So only having their EPS go up 18.7%, I think is very questionable. I think they're going to come in and blow that number out of the water in 2024, which means this 62 forward P you see on the company is not actually 62, right? Keep in mind, Palantir is a double-digit growth rate company on the top line, so it should command, obviously, a much bigger valuation than the average stock in the stock market, which the average stock in the stock market probably trades at a forward P of, let's call it the 15 to 20 range usually, right? And so Palantir's probably they'll probably grow their revenues next year. I would say, analysts have them at 20%, which I'll argue in just a moment that that's a low number, but let's say they grow 20%, that's probably about 4x to 5x the market, right? But does Palantir trade at a 4x to 5x forward PE? Probably closer to a 4x than a 5x, right? Which would mean it's kind of fairly valued. But once again, I think that number is way too low, and the forward P for Palantir probably is more in the 45 to 55 range right now, somewhere in there roughly, right? Which means Palantir is likely trading probably more to the 3x, the average stock in the market, but with 4x to 5x percent, or 4x to 5x type revenue growth over the average stock in the market, right? Now, in terms of the revenue growth, 19.6% for 2024, I mean, they've announced some really big government deals here recently. Not only that, but all these Palantir, let's call it relationships they've been building over the last few months from the AI excitement, right? All that really starts to come to fruition in 2024, right? And if you listen to companies like Snowflake and others, I mean, almost every company is talking about on the software side, you're really going to see the major revenue uptick that we've seen on the hardware side from NVIDIA this year. We're really going to start to see it on the software side in 2024 for these companies overall. And so I wouldn't be surprised at all if they grow more to the 25% type number or 27% in terms of revenues for 2024 overall from kind of that context, right? So And when you think about it from that angle, it's not nearly as scary, right? So here's my thinking in regards to Palantir stock, right? And I own 5,555 shares of the stock in the public account, right? If this stock keeps going down, am I more inclined to buy it or sell it? And the answer is, if this baby keeps going down, I'm much more inclined to buy more shares of Palantir. I can tell you that much, because I just don't think there's many of these sorts of opportunities out in the market with a product that's best of breed that is going to get that they just transformed their sales cycle from taking months and months and months to now, they can get a customer up and running within a matter of days, and to be excited about Palantir's product in a matter of days versus many months before. And so from that context, if Palantir keeps going down, I'm much more inclined to buy more shares versus sell shares. And the rest of the short term, blah, 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 technical this, Alex Karp said this, this and that, like, it is what it is. Like, you want to keep bringing up the SPAC stuff from years ago, bring it up, but it doesn't hold weight anymore. You want to keep bringing up, the share-based compensation, the SBC that we had to deal with years ago, the company had to deal with years ago, that's in the past now. Like, you got to judge these companies off of what's going on now, not what happened back in the clown market back in the day. So that's just my 2 cents on that, okay? All right, appreciate everybody joining me as always. Thank you so much for being here, folks. If you're looking to apply to join a private group, check out the pinned comment down there. You can apply to join us in there. We have a lot of Palantir investors, probably the most intelligent investor community in Palantir out there in the private group. So if you'd like to join us in there, check out the pinned comment. You can apply. We can see if we can get you in there this week or next week. You also get access to all my courses, the 6 and 7 figure Discord chat, all that good stuff. Much love, folks, and have a great day.